Okay, so after we've inputted our section control adjustments for our timings as far as for our chevron pattern and that, our next is the performance tuning. So of course we're going to go into the monitor here, we're going to go into applications, and we're going to go into section control, and then we're going to go into our performance tuning. We're doing the front meter right now. So in looking, basically what a guy's doing when you're doing this is you're setting the time as you're entering and exiting across your headland. So what we'll do is we go down the field, and let's say we're going north and south. We make a strike and a map, seeding into the ground, putting product down. We'll make a strike. I usually like to make a fairly long strike because sometimes you can be out on those timings somewhat, and then you have to end up making another strike. So I usually make it fairly long, because what you're going to do now is when you get to once you've made that north and south strike, you're going to lift up the tool and you're going to turn and you're going to go across that east and west. So when you're going across it east and west, you're going into your monitor, turning on your clutch so your clutch is engaged, and you're going to leave the tool in the air so you can see the seed coming out of the openers on the ground as you're measuring that. So you're going down the field and you're coming up to your strike that you had made north and south, and as you start getting towards it, of course, your section control is going to turn off. And what we're doing is we're adjusting that time so that we don't overlap a bunch, and yet we don't want to skip. So as we go across and start entering that coverage, what's going to happen is the machine turns off and the product stops dropping. Then we're going to turn the product as we're exiting, we're going to do the same thing and measure those two settings. When we come back in the monitor, what we're going to do is when we were entering the coverage, we're looking and we're going to see whether we had a skip or did we have an overlap. So that's the first thing you're going to set, whether it was a skip or overlap. You're going to set the distance of how far that skip was. Let's say we had a 5-foot skip. We're going to put in here that our skip was 5 feet. It's also very critical to make sure that you go the same speed all the time. So you're going to record the speed that you were going. So we'll use 4.5 miles an hour. So we were going 4.5 miles per hour as we were coming in with that entering the coverage. So we're entering the coverage, we had a skip. So in other words, before we got to the headland that we made, running north and south, there was product not on the ground. So by putting this extra 5 feet in, we now would cover that. And that's how we're adjusting entering coverage. Exiting coverage the other way around. If we had a skip, that means we didn't start putting the product down in time. So now we have to start putting that product down sooner. And that's, again, same thing. You measure the distance of exiting the coverage, how far that distance was, and again, we're running at that same 4.5 miles an hour. Again, skip and overlap changes those timings, so if you get those two mixed up, you can get chasing. Pretty simple after that. You put those timings in, re-verify that your timings are correct. As a rule, I like to give a couple extra feet just for those things. You have to keep it in your mind if you're going to start changing your speeds and things like that. It's a good idea to recheck, because of course your seeding job is what makes your whole year. So I mean, if you have skips, it's not a good thing. If you're overlapping, of course, you're wasting product.